Thanks for sticking around. I'm Ava Gaudette here at Go Local Live. Next up, in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center, we have the artistic director from the Sandra Feinstein Gamm Theater. He's going to talk to us about the new 2017-2018 season about to kick off in like a couple of weeks. I'd like to introduce Tony Estrella. Tony, come on out. Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good
to see you too. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So, the Gamm, you know, people know it is a go-to place for great theater, so it's always exciting to get, embark on the next season.
Yeah, absolutely.
What can you tell us?
Well, it's one of those things, it's the picking the season job is the biggest thing that I do. It's the thing that you put the most hours towards all year long. We're actually kind of already thinking, we're already thinking about next year and years after that, and you're kind of constantly like, what's coming down the pike and what might we do and how do you put it all together and all those questions. So, so this one was in place back in, by January or so, and so now we're like, it's that time when you're back in college, you pick classes and everything looks so great, and then all of a sudden now you have to do it, and you're like, all right. Well, we're in rehearsal now for Importance of Being Earnest, which opens in a couple of weeks, and it's sort of just a great way to kind of start the season with probably certainly one of the funniest and most kind of alive and masterpieces of world theater. We did it to Oscar Wilde a few years ago, and so we wanted to revisit it. We had a very heavy, dark, unsettling time certainly, but in the spring with the plays we did, and then coming back, we opened last year with Tom Stoppard's Arcadia, and which shares a lot with this play. And as I was thinking about how do we wanted to open the season with that feeling again, and I've been circling around Earnest for a while. And so we're starting there, and I went to Fred Sullivan, who's going to be directing it for us.
He's like the funniest guy.
He is. If
you want funny, go right to Fred.
Well, I'll tell you, if you want anything, go to Fred, because he's a great man of the theater, and he's directed so many things for us. He's acted with us, of course, and he's he's been around these parts and a kind of an institution here in Providence in Rhode Island for so long, and so. It's a funny story, actually. I went to Fred and said, look, we're going to open with this. Do you want to do it? And he said no. He actually put an expletive before it. It was his initial answer. Gosh. And he just said, I was like, whoa, why? And he said, because it's so hard, and he's really right, because this what Wilde has created is, and it can, and like anything, any masterpiece, we think you wind them up and let them go, but you don't. It's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And he then came back kind of shortly after with this big idea about how he wanted to approach it, and then I couldn't be more excited about doing it. So we're about 2 weeks into rehearsal right now, about halfway through that process, and I think this is going to be, for some people might say, hey, I've seen Importance of Being Earnest, 100 times, and why might I want to see it again? Well, the first reason I always tell people is for joy, and because it's so brilliant, and it will delight you and kind of thrill you in a million ways. But and secondly, it's because it's going to be a very different production. And like I said, when Fred needed to find his way into it, and and so there's going to be a bit. This version of it is going to be a little different in that Oscar Wilde is actually a character in this piece. He's playing a bunch of the smaller parts in it, and he's kind of hosting a production in his own kind of toy theater at his house kind of way, and which is great because and so hints of his biography are going to kind of come in and out of it, and if you know or don't know anything about Oscar Wilde, it doesn't matter. You'll find out a little bit. But famously, at right around the time of this play, this was the last play he wrote, and shortly after was the trial, et cetera, that led to his imprisonment, and so that slight shadow of his biography that'll be there hopefully will reflect the kind of brilliance and the joy and the thrill of it that make it that much more even brighter. So it's going to be a really unique version of this that I don't think anybody's quite seen before. So which is and that's something that we have to do with everything, and that at the Gamm, certainly we think of for every play, like whether it's something that was written 400 years ago or in the case of Wilde 120 years ago, and say, why do it now? Why does it matter now? What is it about right now? And what can we kind of help to point out and resonate with people in 2017 in Rhode Island?
Yeah, it's always cool to see, something like this reinvented and something that you felt like was very familiar to you suddenly feels like you've never seen it before in your life. So
that's what we have to do. You know, we're actually doing 3 kind of big classics in a sense, and certainly Earnest is probably the most well known, though, and the other is Shakespeare, As You Like It, at the end of the year. We do a lot of Shakespeare. That's kind of one of our calling cards, very important to the identity of the theater. And we're also doing Kurt Columbus's artistic director of Trinity Rep, and good friend of ours who is one of the great Chekhov translators in America, and we're doing his Uncle Vanya, and which he's going to be directing, and that's going to be right at the turn of the year. So those 3 plays are these classics that and we have to, for each of those, reinvent them, tell those stories for the first time, and so that's what's exciting about doing them. There's a reason why we keep doing these plays, and I think what's really great about what the Gamm can do is because of that intimate 135 seat space to come and see big kind of epic work right up in front of you, and you can kind of smell it, you're right there with the actors, is in itself, before we even get to how we're going to kind of approach it, a wonderful way for people to be up close and personal with this work. We grow up sometimes with Shakespeare, you get taken in high school, and you might go to Broadway, you might go to a big theater, and you feel like you're a million miles away, and yet you come to the Gamm, and you can see the sweat beating on the actor's brow, and so it's a really different, so we kind of try to mix those, the kind of reinvention, if you will, of the classics with the new stuff as well, and the kind of more the more kind of contemporary and the hard hitting, and we got a couple of those this year with the second play we're doing, which is a new-ish play by it's only been done really in New York, by a great new British playwright named Nick Payne. The play's called Incognito, which deals with the workings of the brain, and it's only 4 actors playing 21 characters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the stories are based on historical case studies of brain, things. For instance, the pathologist.
Cool.
It's crazy.
I
hope so. Einstein's brain is in the story. It's in
He's
a
a
jar.
character?
No,
His brain?
his brain was stolen by the pathologist who did his autopsy to try to study it, and then it was stolen, and then he got permission to study it. That's one of the threads. Another thread is the history of this acute amnesiac who kind of forgets everything almost instantly, except for the love of his wife who keeps visiting him. So it's really it's about how this thing works, and that we don't have a mind, we are one. You know what I mean? That it's that the littlest change up here, and so it's a play. It's a play about memory. It's and incredibly moving, very very like I said, 4 actors, 21 characters. I'm going to be in that. I'm very fortunate to be a part of that cast, and the character I play, the characters I play, I have there's 5 or 6 of them. There's 3 different British accents, an American accent, there's a Welsh accent, some German characters in it. So it's really
that is so much to keep track of.
Yeah. It's crazy. So that's good. And so the balance of that and the wild, it's great to start. I'm really excited about that. That we start with Earnest. We think we know what this is. We're going to get a new way in on it, and then we come to this play that nobody's going to know around these parts, and I think it's going to, I hope, blow their mind.
Yeah,
so,
literally.
Yeah.
And that show is second after Earnest is done,
that
so
starts.
later this year.
That'll be in the picks up in November.
Okay.
Yeah. So
cool.
it's a lot, and and then one other kind of new one that we're going to be doing in the spring. It's a great play, and it has only been done I think once in America. Was the London production came to New York briefly last summer. It's a play, a South African story called "The Human Being Died That Night," which is based on a true story adapted from a book by the South African psychologist. I'm going to forgive me because I'm probably not pronouncing her name right, but Pumla Gobodo Matsakela, and she, as part of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission after apartheid, interviewed an apartheid police assassin who committed many murders and was serving 212 years in prison. And it's about their interaction and the ability, the need for a society to find a way to reconcile itself, to move forward. What is the limits of forgiveness and redemption? It's powerful. It's just the 2 people. It's an incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. I started following it when I was in London, and then I didn't get a chance to see it when it came to BAM last summer, but finally got my hands on the play about over a year ago, and we were lucky to get the rights and be one of the first companies to produce it in the country. So, so that balance is, throughout the season is
and another great piece for an intimate setting too.
Oh, yeah.
And there's 2 actors, and you can just be, it's like you're in their living room or something.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's that great thing too about like a play of size and then a smaller thing, a chamber piece kind of back to back, and that they all happen, and that intimacy is we're very fortunate to I feel as an artist, and when I'm in the audience, that's what I love. I love to sit there and like be up close and personal with what's happening. It's one thing the theater can do that I don't think we can really get anywhere else. You can't, as much as I love film and TV, you don't have that same experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, last show of the season, you're directing.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the Shakespeare.
It's the Shakespeare.
Piece.
Yeah. As you like it. Yeah. And which is we do Shakespeare just about every other year. And again, like I think I mentioned earlier, it's become a big part of our reputation and how people think about us, and they I think they expect it from us, and it's a good it's for. We can give it, up close and personal, as I've said probably too many times already. But As You Like It in particular is one we haven't done. I don't think it's been done in these parts in quite some time. I think the Trinity production was about 20 years ago now, so it's time. And as I was looking for stories and thinking about Shakespeare, I said, thought to myself about, well, what, kind of the tenor of what's happening, what kind of stories do we need maybe are going to resonate with us. And As You Like It, thinking about a play in which this woman Rosalind, one of his greatest female characters, his greatest characters period, doesn't matter to say this, but that leaves the corruption of the court life, of politics, of that, and goes out and finds a new way of reinventing herself and reinventing her life in the forest of art, and so it's a lovely comedy, but that's a very psychologically complex piece, and I think it's going to resonate. And without giving too much away, that's another one where we've been long and hard on the approach to this particular piece and how we can tell this story today and what it might mean. So we're really looking forward to that, and that's of course our closest foray into the students and schools, and so it's always important that we kind of never take Shakespeare for granted and say that for the people who think, I've seen that before, I've seen every Shakespeare play before. Well, a lot of people haven't, and it's such a privilege to be able to introduce people to the greatest writer who ever lived.
Well, it sounds like a really amazing season. Tony, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today. Everyone, you can check it out, the gammtheater.org. You can check out all the info, get some tickets.
Yes,
Tony.
please.